Hello everyone, this is Diana at the Lightside. We are going to continue on with the email questions, and today we're going to talk about some of the memories we have, recollections we have of being on board with the positive aliens. Today is October 12th, 2014, and I wanted to ask Bonnie, one of the first things I have heard about one of your contacts was when you went on board and you were introduced to, I think you said 16 different aliens. Could you kind of describe that to us and what they look like?
It was very interesting and shocking to me at the same time, because up until that point I had basically heard about the blonde, the blue-eyed, tall, human-looking ones, and I went on board ship and I was introduced to the captain. It was Eric, and he's over 7 feet tall, blue in color. I kind of like to think of him as Big Bird, but blue colored, but that's not a very good description of him. But on my book, Alien Contact Messages, there is a drawing of him on the front cover, if anyone is interested in that. And they introduced me to 16 different types of aliens, from very short to tall. But I have to say they were all one head, 2 arms, 2 legs, a torso. The differences were mostly in size and girth. And their clothing was so different. Some of them had on very tight, I guess you'd call them suits. I don't know what else to call them. Almost looking kind of shiny and that type of thing. Some of them had just robes on with a hood and a piece of rope around their middle. And it was very hard for me to really look at them and realize that what I had been seeing before was not the true picture of what space is. Space is very diverse. Depending upon what planet they come from, delineates the size and the shape of them. And also some of them are much more advanced spiritually and technologically than others. And it was just so interesting because they all accepted me. It was like I was going home. You know, everybody was willing to talk to me. They offered me a drink, which kind of looked like blue jello, just as it sets up. I didn't taste anything really except kind of like our water. But I was very impressed, I would say, because of the opening arms that I got. They weren't standoffish or anything like that. It was like they wanted to share with me what they were willing to share. And many of the people here that are in the room now have also been on board ship, and they have different memories, and I think other people should share some of theirs.
Bonnie, do you remember what that function was for? Why there was a gathering?
They were here to try to delegate. They broke up into 4 different groups. There was 4 in a group, and they were delegating authority. I wouldn't say authority. That's kind of the wrong word. One seemed to be checking on the animals. One seemed to be checking on the grass, the trees, plants, that type of thing. One was very interested in the humans and how they behaved and how they reacted to different situations. And the 4th group, I never did really figure out what they were doing there, except that they were kind of the jokesters in the group. They kind of were, you know, making jokes and kind of laughing. And I looked at them and I thought, you're an awful lot like humans. So I never did realize what their part of this project was, except that they were here if we needed them. And I think we're coming close to that now.
Mm-hmm.
So, somebody else like to share some?
Well, I remember when you were talking about meeting kind of officially meeting 16 different alien groups. I have a recollection of, I call it a black tie affair. And I could remember a large room with focusing on a stage, and there's several different aisles and many different people. And we were able to talk with our contacts, and they helped me remember and understand a little bit more that this was a time, the black tie affair. They said that we were in our dress uniforms and we were meeting some dignitaries. It must have been a ceremony or something that was going on, a kind of evolving of that plan, that mission that you were talking about. So that was one of my things that stuck out. Does anybody else remember anything?
Well, I remember seeing myself actually up there in a recollection, I guess you could call it. I remember seeing myself from the back, and my hair was wrapped up, kind of in like a French twist, and I was in a one-piece suit up there. And probably another one of my most outstanding, I'm not going to call it a memory, it was a recollection. I was sitting at a water fountain, and I had my feet in the water, and I was in a white wrap type robe with a tie at the waist, and an individual came in and sat at the fountain with me, and he had the most beautiful brown, soft, loving, twinkly brown doe eyes you've ever seen, and his hair was shoulder length, salt and pepper in color. And he sat next to me, and I took him to be an advisor or an instructor to me. And he said to me, and it, I believe, had symbolic meaning. You must work on your feet, as they are very, very stiff. And he said that. He got up and he exited the area, and he went into an elevator and left the area. And I did not learn until quite a while after that the people up there who are quite spiritually advanced wore the brown robes with a hood, and that was what he was wearing. And at the time I did not know that.
I'd like to jump in here with something. I think that people have got to realize that the ship that we're talking about is very large. And yes, there is streams and there's trees and there are even birds flying around. It is so huge that you can't walk from one end to another. You have to ride some type of vehicle. And Russ, you want to tell about the vehicle?
Well, I have many recollections, I think 5 of them, where I recall going up to the ship, and once there, they had, we would, one time in particular, I wanted to see this dock area, and I was taken up to, or allowed to go up on a catwalk over the dock area, looking down, and I saw levels, and at the top level there were smaller craft which were circular. They docked and people could walk out. But then I also have 4 or 5 recollections over a number of years where they would allow us, we'd be sitting around, a group of us at a small table, and a craft would come. It was no wheels, and when we wanted to board this craft, we just touched our hand. It was like an open, almost like an open bread pan. It had a couple benches in it, You touched your hand on the top, an opening appeared and just slid back. You'd sit in on a bench seat, and the driver in front just placed his hands on like a touch screen. Now we have touch screens, so I couldn't understand there were no knobs or dials. He just moved his hands, but now with a touch screen you can understand that's what it was. And I also recall something like a motorcycle. I called it a sky cycle. And I don't have a motorcycle. I've never ridden a jet ski. But the movement of it was you leaned into the corner. So when you wanted to go around the corner, you would lean left or lean right. And I guess I had a propensity toward speed because I was told one time I lost my passenger. So,
And as I recall, Russ, it did not touch the ground. It was like a hovercraft, two-passenger hovercraft.
Yep. So how I lost the passenger, I don't know. I was reminded.
Watch your speed.
Yeah, slow down.
And I know I've seen the atmosphere in the open areas and in the parks, and what Bonnie was talking about before. The ship is so huge that it actually has its own atmosphere with birds and trees. It's beautiful.
I do recall seeing the Earth from space, and it is beautiful.
So you were out there.
Out there looking back, yes. And I remember one time leaving, like coming up, like toward the ship, and somebody said, I can't remember what it was, like Sicily, and I said, no, Crete. And it was right around Italy, Greece area. And when I came back, I remembered that, so when I came back, I looked that up, and luckily I was right. But the two islands off the main continent there. But like I said, the view from space, looking down on the Earth and looking at the stars is just breathtaking. As Mon said, the sun is always shining up there. There's no clouds.
And the Milky Way is like a starry highway in the sky. And when you are up there and you look out and you see 7-story high craft, miles in diameter, parked in space, and you see the Milky Way below them, it's like, and we think we have technology? We haven't seen anything yet.
I have memories of being on board the ship, and it is quite large. It has its own shopping area and food court, and because people live in space, that's where they live. They don't go back to their home planets, but they also have things to entertain people or things to do in your spare time. I remember ice skating on an ice rink there and really getting into ice dancing, and I have 4 left feet here, so that really fascinated me. But I actually watched myself ice skate, and it was wonderful. It was wonderful.
Speaking of recreation, I remember playing something like handball, like racquetball, but I can't remember if there was a racket or not, but it was like a ball the size of a golf ball that was metallic looking, and it felt, the atmosphere was different. Either I weighed less or it was like the less gravity, but it was a little different feeling playing that on there. But I remember coming out of this area where we were playing, and there were people waiting to talk with me, and I just knew that they were very good friends of mine. They had nothing but good intentions toward me. Such a great feeling being up there.
Let's see, where should I start? There's more than one ship out there, and they're talking about what we call a peace ship. And it's a awesome place to be. And there's all these different kinds of aliens there. And they all have their own way of breathing because not everybody breathes oxygen. Anybody who thinks that a planet can't survive unless it has oxygen on it, they haven't got a clue. Excuse me, but you don't. So different areas have special atmospheres just for the people who live on that or sleep on that deck. So they don't have to wear, apparatus all the time. And Bonnie talks about, it's in a picture in her book also, what somebody she saw who had, something going around their ears, it looked like, and into their nose so they could actually breathe when they're in a meeting. But the other ship that I visited has plants and animals on it. And it's really awesome. One of the memories I have is standing in a room that's had cabinets or doors that you open up. It looks like in the inside of a hospital room or something where everything was metal. And you'd open up the doors and there'd be food and stuff in there for the different animals. Or medication if they needed something special. But usually didn't need medication. The spirit was very nutritious up there, if you want to call it that.
Healing.
It's all healing, yeah, and it's comforting because there's so many different kinds of animals on board the ship that required care, and they also needed to feel not afraid, that they could be happy where they're at because they weren't going to be staying on the ship, they're going somewhere else. And we never had an animal come on board unless we had their permission for them to be there. We didn't just take them off the planet by force and break up their families. Families came together. They agreed on that before they left the planet.
Can you explain why animals were taken on board?
Part of a group that God set up to repopulate the planet if something catastrophic would happen here. So things like the dodo bird. Up on board ship there were dodo birds. Some of the ones that were extinct that, within the last several centuries actually still do exist somewhere else. This has been a project that's been going on for a couple thousand years or more. And it's hard to get into that because some people don't grasp that concept. We wouldn't even take a rock or a tree off the planet unless they gave their permission to be moved.
Who's in charge of that ship?
I want to say Jesus. He's got his hand on everything. He cares about everything, from the tiniest little microorganism to us and to dinosaurs. I don't know if dinosaurs were saved or not. I can't remember that part. They're all part of God's creation. Actually, God has his hand in here. He's the one who issued the lists. He is a big part of this because it's all part of his creation. He's going to make sure it survives.
Isn't the ship nicknamed the Ark?
Yeah, it's like an ark.
The new Ark.
The new Ark, yeah.
Yeah, the new ark. And it's just amazing. It's huge.
So in other words, if anything catastrophic happens to the planet can be repopulated as it was meant to be.
Well, look how many catastrophic things have happened so far. Just with earthquakes and volcanoes and the stuff going into the water. That changes the life force of the area. Plus the stuff we just had happen in Japan. That radiation is in the ocean. And it's killing off a lot of different species that aren't going to be here anymore after this. So that's a catastrophic event. That's just something.
The way I understand it, going back to where Bonnie began about being at this meeting with 16 other people that split into 4 groups, and each group was in charge of something. So you must be in the group that's in charge of preserving animal species.
Everything. I'm not in charge of the humans, though. They're a whole different group.
Well, you work with that group, though.
Yes.
You're
We
not
all work in
charge.
conjunction with each other.
Yeah.
hmm But even one-cell organisms are just as important to God as the big animals,
Mhm.
because it's all a balance in nature.
So if animals and plants are being evacuated, then there is an evacuation for humans
Mhm.
out there.
Yes.
Could that be what the Bible calls the rapture?
That's a good question.
That's a
I don't
topic
know
for
that
another
that
time.
word's even in the Bible, but that is part of the plan, ultimately, yes.
So
But
like
you
an
have to know who's out there, because
Right.
there's both species out there that are going to be taking people off the planet.
And
So you better know who you're
the
dealing
reason I
with.
brought that up is because I don't know of anybody who goes to church on a regular basis who would ever think that aliens would be involved in the rapture / evacuation end times. So
Well, they're just doing their part. They're working for God.
Right.
exactly.
Well, it's aliens, angels, ETs, aren't they all the same thing?
Well, to us they are.
But not
But
everybody.
I think
Yeah.
some people actually think they will be taken up into a cloud,
hmm
as it says in the Bible. They take that literally.
And maybe a cloud is what covers
Right.
a UFO, so that it wouldn't be scary to people. But like you said, I think we ought to clarify, both sides of the force will have ships in the air
Mhm.
to take people. So you better know, you better hone your instincts and know who you're going with.
Mhm.
Topic for another day. We got away from talking
Sue
about our
says we're
friends.
done today.
We're talking about the aliens and the lifestyle we met up
We
there.
have to
Yeah,
go where it goes.
I know.
Try to end on a positive note.
Yes.
Did we
Well,
end
I
on
have
a
a funny one.
Okay, good.
I was up on board and they said, what do you think we're missing? And I said, I think we're missing pizza. You have no idea how how good it is and everything else. And so I had to explain to them what it was and everything. And a while later, I went back on board, and they took me over to this, like a little cafe with tables sitting out, and they said, we have a surprise for you, and they had pizza. And I said, what? You don't eat meat? What is it? Looked like pepperoni. Well, we've made it from products, and it kind of tastes like your pepperoni. But it was fairly good. I said, I don't think I even want to go unless you got pizza.
It's funny.
So they were trying awful hard, to make people comfortable in what they're used to. So
With so many different species on board, they have to do a lot of different things so that everybody is happy.
I think what's really amazing to me is that they are self-contained.
Mm-hmm.
They grow their own food, they make their own oxygen or nitrogen or whatever the different aliens need. If they have repairs, they have a place in the ship that does the repairs to it, and they also repair smaller craft if they come in and need work on them. So they are all self-contained, and they spend their lives out in space trying to do good.
Yep. And they say because they are out in space and they have limited resources, they recycle everything.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And they don't use water to wash. They use something like sound.
Like a
Sound waves.
vibration or something.
Yeah.
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 So it
Mhm.
really saves on
Resources.
water. Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's, you need everything. Oh, something else I'd like to say is, we're talking about that area with the stream and trees and stuff. You know that there's actually clouds up there?
Yes.
They're actually, it looks like clouds. It's condensation. So,
Right.
it's just amazing what they can produce with nothing.
Right.
I don't know how to say it otherwise, but they can't, run out to the store and buy anything. They have to produce it all and try to keep everything in balance.
And the smell. The smell of the ship is so pure and fresh. It's like nothing else that's here. It's just, oh, you just can't take enough of it, and it's so refreshing.
There, between all of us, we have so many recollections and stuff, and I think maybe we should talk about that another time, get in a little bit more detail, because there's so much more that is on board ship.
And we have drawings on our website of our recollections, if you care to check that out.
So go to the lightside.org and you can see the pictures that we've drawn of what we've seen.
Yes, there are also more videos that we've made and audio files.
Mm.
If you'd like to check that out, www.thelightside.org.
Until next time.
Be blessed.